Commander Elena Vega stepped away from the display, her jaw clenched tight enough to ache. Around her, the emergency command center beneath Geneva had fallen silent, the initial shock giving way to a grim awareness of what they'd just witnessed. "Status report on the remaining colonies," she demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. Captain Rodriguez, his uniform still covered in dust from the emergency evacuation of Luna Base, consulted his tablet. 17,000 confirmed missing, Commander. Almost 40,000 casualties. He paused, swallowing hard. And those are just the preliminary numbers. The Thraxian raid had been surgical in its brutality. Their strange geometric ships had appeared without warning. Massive obsidian pyramids that defied conventional detection systems. Earth's outer colonies, established as humanity's proud first steps into interstellar expansion, had been reduced to laboratories for alien curiosity. Elena moved to the central holodeck where the recovered footage played in a continuous loop. The Thraxians themselves were unlike anything xenobiologists had predicted they might encounter. Tall, crystalline beings with multiple jointed limbs that moved with uncanny precision. They showed no emotion as they methodically categorized human settlements. Infrastructure in one collection vessel, technology in another, and humans. Elena forced herself to watch as the aliens herded screaming colonists into translucent containment fields. "They're studying us," said Dr. Emika, chief xenobiologist, his voice hollow. "Not conquering, not communicating, just collecting data. Like we're insects," someone muttered from the back of the room. The final footage showed the Thraxian commander, distinguished by elaborate crystalline growths across its exoskeleton, addressing a camera drone that had somehow survived the initial attack. The alien spoke in perfect, emotionless English, explaining that humanity had been evaluated and found lacking in both threat potential and technological value. The raid was merely a sampling expedition, with more to follow at their convenience. "The arrogance," Elena whispered, replaying the alien's final words. "Your primitive propulsion technology ensures you remain confined to your local stellar neighborhood. Our homeworld lies beyond the Sagittarius quantum reef, a distance your species cannot traverse in a functional time frame. Retaliation is not merely unlikely, it is mathematically impossible." The transmission ended with coordinates, a deliberate taunt showing exactly where the Thraxian homeworld was located, 15,000 light-years away beyond an impassable barrier of quantum distortions that would tear conventional spacecraft apart. "They wanted us to know where they live," Elena said, her fingernails digging into her palms, "to understand how powerless we are to reach them." The room remained silent as the implications settled over them. With conventional drives, a human fleet would take thousands of years to reach the Thraxian homeworld, if they could even survive the quantum reef. By revealing their location, the aliens had demonstrated their absolute confidence in humanity's limitations. Admiral Green, who had been quietly observing from the edge of the room, finally spoke. "Commander Vega, you're to report to Luna Base Omega at 600 tomorrow. Security clearance ultraviolet has been granted." Elena turned, surprised. Ultraviolet clearance was rumored to exist but never confirmed, the classification level above top secret. "Sir." The Admiral's weathered face revealed nothing as he handed her a sealed datapad. "The Thraxians made one critical mistake in their calculations, Commander. They assume they know everything about human capability." His eyes, hard as flint, met hers. "They don't." As the emergency session adjourned, Elena found herself alone with the holographic display of the Thraxian homeworld, a blue-green planet orbiting a binary star system, surrounded by defensive platforms and the shimmering barrier of the quantum reef. The aliens believed this distance made them untouchable, their homeworld forever beyond humanity's reach. They were wrong, and Elena Vega would be instrumental in showing them just how catastrophically they had underestimated the human response to an existential threat. The shuttle carrying Commander Vega docked with no external lights or transponder signals. Luna Base Omega didn't officially exist. It had been scrubbed from all public records 50 years ago, its massive underground facilities disguised as an abandoned mining operation deemed unprofitable after the helium-3 boom of the 2080s. Two silent officers escorted her through a series of security checkpoints, each more sophisticated than the last. At the final barrier, a full biological scan confirmed not just her identity, but the absence of any tracking devices or neural implants. Only then did the massive tungsten doors slide open to reveal the command center. "Welcome to Prometheus Division, Commander Vega," Admiral Cohen said, extending his hand. In person, he was shorter than she'd expected, but his presence filled the room. Scars from the Martian conflicts crisscrossed his dark skin, a reminder that he'd earned his position through combat rather than politics. "I wasn't aware this facility existed, sir," Elena replied, taking in the massive command center bustling with activity. Screens displayed star charts, technical schematics, and deployment schedules that spanned the solar system. "That was the point," Cohen replied with the hint of a smile. After the first contact disaster of 2092, Earth's nations made a collective decision. Never again would humanity be caught unprepared. He gestured for her to follow him to a restricted area marked simply as Horizon. "The Thraxians aren't the first advanced species we've encountered," Cohen continued as they walked. "Just the first to make their presence widely known." Belina stopped mid-stride. "Sir, the public knows about the Mars outpost attack and the Centauri probe disappearance. They believe those were accidents or equipment failures. They weren't." Cohen's expression darkened. "Earth has been observed, probed, and occasionally visited for decades. Prometheus Division was established to ensure we'd be ready when the visitors turned hostile." They entered a viewing gallery overlooking an enormous underground hangar, so vast that Elena initially couldn't comprehend its scale. Then her mind processed what she was seeing. Ships. Dozens of them. Not the conventional ion drive vessels of Earth's public space fleet, but something entirely different. "The Nightingale-class strike cruisers," Cohen said, gesturing to the sleek, obsidian vessels nearest to them. Equipped with energy shields reverse-engineered from recovered alien technology. The Archangel-class carriers behind them can deploy atmospheric fighters or serve as troop transports. And the flagship. He pointed to a massive vessel in the center. The UES Retribution. Elena's mind raced to process what she was seeing. How is this possible? The resources required. "Every nation on Earth has contributed to this project for 50 years, Commander. 2% of global GDP, funneled through black budgets, shell corporations, and classified research initiatives. The finest minds of 3 generations working in complete secrecy." Dr. Annika Sharma approached them, her lab coat bearing insignia Elena didn't recognize. "The Admiral is being modest. The ships are impressive, but they're just vehicles." She handed Elena a security tablet. "This is what the Thraxians don't know we have." The tablet displayed schematics for what appeared to be a propulsion system, but like nothing Elena had ever seen. The mathematics involved made her head swim. Equations that seemed to defy conventional physics. "The Alcubierre-Raman drive," Sharma explained. "Conventional physics says faster than light travel requires infinite energy. We found a loophole. By folding space rather than moving through it," Elena whispered, beginning to understand. Cohen nodded. "Exactly. The Thraxians believe their homeworld is untouchable because they're calculating travel time based on our publicly known propulsion technology. With the Alcubierre-Raman drive, we can reach their system in 17 days. Elena looked up from the tablet, the implications becoming clear. They have no idea what's coming. Operation Phantom Blade has been in development for 12 years, Cohen confirmed. The ships are ready. The crews are trained. We were simply waiting for the right commander to lead the assault fleet. And you believe that's me? Elena asked, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Cohen and Sharma exchanged glances. The Thraxians took something from all of us, Commander, the Admiral said softly. But the personnel files say they took your entire family in the Colony Epsilon attack. That combination of personal motivation and tactical brilliance is exactly what this mission requires. Alina turned back to the viewing window, watching as ground crews swarmed over the vessels below. Humanity's secret teeth, hidden from the galaxy until they were needed. "When do we leave?" she asked. Lieutenant Jameson Carter hadn't left his analysis pod in 3 days. The small chamber, once a storage closet in Luna Base Omega's linguistics wing, was now wallpapered with Thraxian communication fragments. Printouts, holographic projections, and scribbled notes covered every surface. The air smelled of coffee and desperation. "You need to sleep," said Dr. Ibrahim Hassan, leaning against the doorframe. The neurobiologist's usual immaculate appearance had given way to rumpled clothes and a 5 o'clock shadow. Carter didn't look up from his terminal. "Sleep when we win," he mumbled, his bloodshot eyes scanning another intercepted transmission. Hassan entered, carefully stepping over stacks of research materials. "The assault fleet launches in 5 days. Admiral Cohen wants our final report in 48 hours. This got Carter's attention. He swiveled in his chair, rubbing his eyes. "I've almost got it. There's a pattern in how they communicate that reveals everything about how they think." He pulled up a visualization of Thraxian language patterns, a complex 3-dimensional structure of interlocking symbols. Their language has no subjunctives, no words for concepts like might or could. Everything is absolute, true, false, probable, improbable. Hassan nodded. "It matches what I've found in the neural scans from captured Thraxian technology. Their cognitive architecture is fundamentally different from ours. They're essentially biological quantum computers, processing information with incredible speed and precision, but locked into linear thinking," Carter finished. He pulled up footage from the Colony Epsilon attack. "Look at this. When our defense forces tried unconventional tactics, like the militia group that used mining explosives to collapse that ridge onto the Thraxian ground forces, the aliens froze for 3.8 seconds before responding." "Computational lag," Hassan murmured. "They were recalculating." Carter nodded vigorously. "Exactly. They can't improvise. Every response is calculated based on established parameters. When faced with human unpredictability, they have to rerun their entire decision matrix." He stood up suddenly, swaying slightly from exhaustion, and moved to a star chart where the Thraxian home system was highlighted. "Their entire civilization is built on mathematical certainty. They attacked us because their probability engines told them we pose 0 threat. Not minimal threat. 0. Hassan's eyes widened as he grasped the implications. "So when we show up in their home system, total cognitive disruption," Carter confirmed with a grim smile. "But we need to maximize the effect. We need to be so completely outside their predictive models that their entire command structure experiences simultaneous computational failure." A knock at the door interrupted them. Admiral Cohen entered, accompanied by Commander Vega. Both officers looked somber. "Lieutenant Carter," Cohen said formally, "I understand you've made a breakthrough." Carter straightened, suddenly aware of his disheveled appearance. "Yes, sir. We've identified the Thraxians' critical vulnerability, their inability to process scenarios their algorithms deem impossible." Vega's eyes swept across the room, taking in the organized chaos of Carter's research. "And how do we exploit this vulnerability, Lieutenant?" Carter hesitated, then gestured to a sealed file on his desk. "By doing exactly what they believe we cannot do, Commander. But not just appearing in their home system, appearing in a way that defies every calculation they've made about our capabilities." He activated a holographic display showing a simulated approach to the Thraxian system. Standard tactical doctrine would suggest a direct assault on their military installations. That's what they'll have contingencies for, remote as they believe the possibility to be. "But you're suggesting something else," Cohen said, his interest clearly piqued. Carter nodded. "The Thraxians took my wife and daughters from Colony Epsilon. I've had time to think about how to hurt them most effectively." His voice remained eerily calm. "We don't just need to defeat them militarily. We need to shatter their understanding of reality. He outlined his proposal, a series of seemingly illogical attack patterns and feints that would appear random to Thraxian analysis. Ships appearing and disappearing, targeting non-military installations before military ones, communication in patterns that would trigger cascading errors in their translation matrices. When he finished, the room was silent. Then Vega spoke softly. "You're not just proposing a military strategy. You're describing psychological warfare against a species that doesn't understand psychology." Carter's eyes met hers, and she saw something there that sent a chill down her spine. Not hatred or rage, but a cold, calculating purpose. "They took my family thinking they understood humanity's limits," he said simply. "I'm going to show them how wrong they are." The launch bay of the UES Retribution hummed with controlled energy as final preparations were completed. Admiral Elena Vega stood before the assembled ship captains, her newly pinned insignia catching the light. Behind them loomed the memorial wall, a massive panel of polished obsidian, where crew members had left handprints in luminescent ink, each print representing family lost to the Thraxians. "This mission was classified ultraviolet until yesterday," Vega said, her voice carrying across the cavernous space. "Now it's been upgraded to Nova Black. Even its existence is denied. If we fail, Earth will disavow all knowledge of this fleet." Captain Maya Singh of the UES Defiance raised an eyebrow. "And if we succeed, Admiral?" A grim smile crossed Vega's face. "Then history remembers our names." The ship captains represented humanity's finest, veterans of the Mars conflicts, decorated pilots, strategic prodigies. Each had been selected not just for skill, but for personal motivation. Every officer in the assault fleet had lost someone to the Thraxians. "Lieutenant Carter's analysis gives us a unique advantage," Vega continued, activating a holographic display of the Thraxian home system. "Their quantum computing minds cannot process true randomness or intuitive leaps. We'll exploit this weakness through Operation Broken Mirror, attack patterns designed to create maximum cognitive disruption." The display shifted to show the fleet's unique formations, asymmetrical groupings that would appear chaotic to Thraxian sensors. "Our ships incorporate technology they've never encountered," Vega explained. "Metamaterial hulls that absorb rather than reflect detection signals. Gravitational lensing that bends light around our vessels. Weapons specifically calibrated to the resonant frequencies of their crystalline biology." Commander Hiroshi Tanaka, weapons specialist aboard the Retribution, stepped forward. "The Thraxians believe their technology is superior because they've only seen what we wanted them to see. Their sensors detected our conventional fleet, the outdated ships we deliberately kept in service as decoys." He gestured to a schematic of the Thraxian defensive grid. "Their entire defense strategy is based on incomplete data. They're prepared for enemies using technology they understand, not what we're bringing to the fight." As the briefing concluded, the captains dispersed to their vessels. Vega remained, staring at the tactical display. The plan was audacious, bordering on insanity. Exactly why it might succeed. "Admiral, we're ready for final departure checks," reported Lieutenant Commander Rivera, her executive officer. Vega nodded. "Begin pre-jump protocols." Throughout Neptune's shadow, 50 ships powered up their systems. On each vessel, crews made final preparations with the quiet efficiency of those who understood the stakes. Engineers monitored the experimental Alcubierre Raman drives. Navigation officers plotted the complex sequence of space-folding jumps that would carry them through the quantum reef, and tactical teams ran final diagnostics on weapons systems that had never been tested in actual combat. Aboard the Retribution, Vega made her way to the bridge. The command center was a marvel of human engineering. Holographic displays providing 360-degree situational awareness, neural link interfaces for instantaneous communication between key personnel, and at its center, the captain's chair, designed to keep her connected to every aspect of the ship during battle. "All ships report ready, Admiral," announced Communications Officer Chen as Vega took her seat. "Very well. Initiate synchronized count." Across 50 ships, the same words echoed. Alcubierre drive spooling. Spacefold initiating in 10, 9. On view screens throughout the fleet, Neptune's blue-green sphere began to distort as space-time itself bent around the vessels. 3, 2, 1. In an instant, the fleet vanished. No energy signature, no warp flash, no indication they had ever been there at all. Just empty space where moments before, humanity's vengeance had waited. Simultaneously, across the solar system, Earth's remaining defense forces launched a coordinated series of attacks against Thraxian scouting parties, sacrificial gambits designed to reinforce the aliens' belief that humans remain trapped within their own star system, fighting a desperate defensive war with conventional technology. No algorithm could have predicted that as the Thraxians celebrated these easy victories against Earth's apparent last stand, the real threat was already traversing the impossible distance to their undefended home. Structural integrity at 62% and falling. Lieutenant Sarah Chen called out, her fingers dancing across the navigation console as warning indicators flashed across the Retribution's bridge. The quantum reef stretched around them like an endless storm of fractured light. Space itself torn into glittering shards that lashed against their shields. Through the command viewport, Admiral Vega could see other ships in the fleet flickering in and out of conventional space, their Alcubierre bubbles struggling against physics itself. The UES Indomitable was already showing signs of hull breach, its port side enveloped in blue-white energy discharges. The theoretical models didn't account for this level of dimensional turbulence, Dr. Sharma reported, her voice steady despite the chaos. The physicist had insisted on joining the mission, arguing that no one else could make real-time adjustments to the drive if complications arose. Now, as the fleet found itself trapped in what could only be described as interdimensional crossfire, her presence seemed prescient. A massive surge rocked the Retribution, sending several crew members sprawling across the deck. Emergency systems engaged automatically, medical drones deploying to assist the injured. "Admiral, we can't maintain this approach vector," Chen said, a note of urgency in her voice. "At current trajectory, total drive failure in 7 minutes." This was the moment humanity's counterattack might end. Trapped between dimensions, their atoms scattered across light years of space, Vega had prepared herself for the possibility of conventional defeat, but not for failure before they even reached the battlefield. Then Chen's expression changed, her eyes widening as she studied the quantum fluctuations surrounding the fleet. "The reef isn't uniform," she said suddenly, more to herself than anyone else. "It's patterned." She magnified a section of the dimensional disturbance on the main view screen, revealing subtle repetitions in the energy waves. "It's not random chaos. It's a structure," she breathed, her mind racing ahead of her words. "Admiral, the reef isn't a barrier. It's a puzzle." Vega moved to Chen's station. "Explain." "The Thraxians believe this reef is impassable because they approached it as a brute force problem, trying to push through with raw power," Chen explained, her hands flying over the controls. "But look at these harmonic resonances. The energy patterns repeat at quantum intervals." Sharma joined them, her expression shifting from concern to amazement as she grasped Chen's insight. "She's right. It's like a combination lock. If we match our drive frequencies to these patterns, we become part of the reef instead of fighting against it," Chen finished. Vega didn't hesitate. "Do it, and transmit the new approach parameters to the fleet." Chen reconfigured the Alcubierre drive, synchronizing its energy signature with the quantum patterns she'd identified. The ship's shuddering gradually subsided as they shifted from battling the reef to flowing with its natural movements. "It's working," Sharma confirmed, studying the readouts. "We're slipping between the energy strands like water through a net." Across the fleet, other ships implemented the new approach. Vessels that moments before had been on the verge of disintegration now moved smoothly through the quantum maelstrom, guided by Chen's discovery. The reef's own properties became their propulsion, carrying them forward at impossible speeds. As they neared the far side of the barrier, long-range sensors detected something unexpected. A massive installation floating in the void just beyond the reef's edge. Its architecture was unmistakably Thraxian, but its purpose wasn't immediately clear. "Magnify," Vega ordered. The view screen zoomed in on the structure. A construction sphere approximately 40 kilometers in diameter, surrounded by smaller support facilities and defense platforms. "Life signs?" Vega asked, though she already suspected the answer. The sensor officer's voice was tight with emotion. "Confirmed, Admiral. Multiple species detected, including human biosignatures, thousands of them. A prisoner facility, a research installation where captives from multiple worlds were being studied, perhaps exploited for their biological or intellectual resources. The original mission plan had been to bypass all obstacles and strike directly at the Thraxian homeworld, a clean decapitation strike against their leadership. But seeing the prison sphere, Vega made a decision no Thraxian commander would comprehend, one that defied tactical logic but defined human compassion. "Tactical, prepare boarding parties," she ordered, her voice steady despite knowing this choice might cost them their element of surprise. "Navigation, plot approach vectors for the entire fleet." Lieutenant Commander Rivera looked up from her station. "Admiral, the mission parameters have changed," Vega finished firmly. "We're not leaving those people behind. Any of them." The boarding operation moved with practiced precision, despite being entirely improvised. Admiral Vega watched from the Retribution's command center as tactical feeds showed strike teams breaching the Thraxian prison sphere at multiple points. Lieutenant Carter led the primary insertion team, his knowledge of Thraxian communications proving invaluable as they bypassed security protocols. "Minimal resistance in sectors 3 through 7, reported Commander Tanaka. They weren't expecting visitors. The Thraxians had positioned only a skeleton security force at the facility. Why waste resources defending a location that was, by their calculations, unreachable? This overconfidence now worked against them as human strike teams moved efficiently through the structure. "Admiral," Tanaka continued, his voice shifting, "you need to see this." The main view screen switched to a helmet camera feed from one of the strike teams. It showed row upon row of transparent cells, each containing a single occupant. Some were human colonists from the raids, but others were entirely unfamiliar species, evidence that Earth wasn't the Thraxians' only target. "They're categorized by cognitive patterns," Carter's voice came through the comm. "The Thraxians are studying how different species solve problems." The feed shifted to show a laboratory section, where captives were subjected to various tests and simulations. Monitoring equipment recorded their neural activity as they worked through increasingly complex challenges. "They're mining our minds," said a hoarse voice from off-camera. The helmet camera turned to reveal an emaciated man in tattered clothing. Despite his condition, Vega immediately recognized Dr. Kiyoshi Tanaka, Earth's foremost weapons developer, who had been presumed killed in the Colony Epsilon attack. "Dr. Tanaka," Vega acknowledged. "We thought you were dead." "Sometimes I wished I was," he replied, leaning heavily against a console. "They've kept me alive, because my neural architecture is apparently optimal for weapons development." Under Carter's protection, Dr. Tanaka was escorted to a secure area where he could brief the command team. Medical staff provided emergency treatment while he spoke. "The Thraxians are knowledge parasites," he explained, wincing as a medic treated wounds on his arms. "They can replicate technology perfectly, improve efficiency, optimize existing systems, but they cannot innovate. They've evolved to be computational rather than creative." He gestured weakly toward the laboratory. "That's why they harvest creativity from other species. They place us in problem-solving scenarios, record our neural activity, then implement the solutions without understanding the intuitive processes behind them." Tanaka's eyes darkened. "And I've been helping them build something terrible." With trembling hands, he accessed a nearby terminal, bypassing security using codes he'd memorized during his captivity. Schematics appeared on screen. Massive weapons platforms incorporating elements of human-inspired design with Thraxian precision engineering. Planet killers, he said simply, designed to neutralize any species that might eventually threaten them. They'd forced me to solve the theoretical problems their engineers couldn't overcome. Vega studied the schematics, recognizing components that had been theoretical in Earth's advanced weapons research. How close are they to deployment? 6 months, maybe less. They're being constructed in orbit around the Thraxian homeworld. Tanaka looked up, his eyes haunted. Admiral, if those weapons become operational, no world will be safe. The Thraxians plan to sterilize any planet with species showing excessive creative potential, starting with Earth. The revelation transformed the mission. What had begun as an operation of vengeance now carried the weight of preventing extinction, not just for humanity, but for all species the Thraxians deemed threatening. As rescue operations continued throughout the prison sphere, the liberated captives brought unexpected assets to the fleet. Intimate knowledge of Thraxian systems, security protocols, and most crucially, the realization that the aliens were utterly unprepared for what they considered mathematically impossible. They'd grown complacent in their certainty, Dr. Tanaka explained as medical teams transferred him to the Retribution's infirmary. Their probability engines calculated a 0% chance of any species breaching the quantum reef. When we appear in their home system, he trailed off, a grim smile forming on his gaunt face. Total cognitive disruption, Carter finished, echoing his earlier prediction. Vega nodded, decision made. We continue to the Thraxian homeworld as planned, but with a new primary objective: neutralize those weapon platforms before they become operational. As the fleet regrouped, now accompanied by liberation ships carrying the rescued captives, their target became not just the Thraxian military, but the source of their supreme confidence: the probability engines that had incorrectly calculated humanity's capabilities. The Thraxian homeworld loomed large on the Retribution's view screen, a gleaming azure sphere orbited by countless defense platforms and the massive moon-sized battle station that military intelligence had designated Terminus. The fleet had emerged from their final jump at the system's edge, momentarily undetected as the Thraxian sensors struggled to process what their algorithms insisted could not exist. We have approximately 3 minutes before their systems recalibrate and acknowledge our presence, Lieutenant Carter reported from his station. Their computational lag is already beginning as their threat assessment matrices try to resolve our existence against their certainty of its impossibility. Admiral Vega studied the tactical display. The Thraxian defenses were formidable. A network of overlapping fields and weapons platforms designed to annihilate any approaching force. Under conventional military doctrine, this would be a suicide mission. All ships, implement paddle protocol, she ordered. Commander Raju Patel, standing at the tactical station, gave a tight nod and initiated the sequence they had practiced, but never tested in actual combat. Across the human fleet, Al-Kubir Raman drives reconfigured to Patel's specifications. Instead of creating single space-time bubbles around each vessel, they began generating localized gravity distortions throughout the Thraxian defense grid. The effect was immediate and devastating. Energy weapons fired from orbital platforms curved back on their sources as space itself warped around them. Targeting systems reported phantom ships where none existed while ignoring the actual vessels moving steadily toward the planet. Defensive screens designed to block conventional approaches folded in on themselves as the human ships manipulated the dimensional fabric they operated within. They're trying to adapt, Carter noted, monitoring Thraxian communications, but their response time is degrading. The cognitive dissonance is cascading through their command structure. On the main view screen, a Thraxian battle cruiser fired at what its sensors perceived as a human vessel, only to destroy one of its own defense platforms when the dimensional distortion redirected the energy blast. The confusion was spreading through their fleet as commanders received contradictory data and impossible sensor readings. Phase 2, Vega ordered. The human fleet split into 3 battle groups, each implementing a different variant of the paddle protocol. To Thraxian observers, it would appear as though the ships were in multiple locations simultaneously, their movements defying the laws of physics as understood by the crystalline aliens. Commander Patel's face showed grim satisfaction as his theoretical work translated into real-world chaos, once dismissed as too reckless for traditional military command. His understanding of non-linear tactics had made him essential to this mission. Admiral, the weapon platforms are attempting to form a synchronized firing solution. If they succeed, even our dimensional shifting won't save us. Targeting data received from Dr. Tanaka confirmed, announced the weapons officer. We have firing solutions on all 12 planet killer construction sites. Vega nodded. All ships' priority targets are the weapon platforms. Fire at will. The human fleet unleashed its arsenal, not the conventional weapons the Thraxians might have expected, but specialized armaments designed by reverse engineering their own technology. Quantum phase torpedoes bypassed defensive screens by momentarily shifting out of conventional spacetime. Resonance beams targeted the crystalline structures of Thraxian ships, shattering them from within. Aboard the Thraxian command nexus, the High Command faced a scenario their strategic algorithms had never contemplated. Their communications, intercepted and translated by Carter's team, revealed their growing panic. Unknown vessels have breached primary, secondary, and tertiary defense grids simultaneously. Impossible. Sensor data must be corrupted. Weapons are ineffective. They appear to control local space-time geometry. Finally, the Thraxian Supreme Commander broadcast on all frequencies. Unidentified fleet, how are you here? This is mathematically impossible. Admiral Vega's response was transmitted across the entire system, her voice steady and cold. You calculated our capabilities using logic. You should have accounted for human spite. The battle unfolded like a chaotic dance, beautiful in its complexity and terrifying in its implications. The human ships executed maneuvers that defied conventional space-time physics, appearing to be in multiple locations simultaneously, creating defensive screens from folded dimensions, and generating artificial gravity wells that turned the Thraxians' own weapons against them. As the orbital defenses collapsed under an assault they were never designed to comprehend, Vega ordered the final phase of the operation. Landing craft launched toward the Thraxian capital, not to destroy it, but to deliver a message no algorithm could have predicted. The Grand Assembly Chamber of the Thraxian hierarchy stood as a monument to mathematical precision. Crystalline columns rose in perfect Fibonacci sequences, supporting a dome that captured and amplified sound waves to exact acoustic specifications. Every angle, every surface had been calculated to reflect the logical perfection the Thraxians valued above all else. Into this sanctuary of order came the chaos of humanity. Admiral Elena Vega led the strike team personally, her combat armor still bearing scorch marks from the firefight outside. Flanking her were Lieutenant Carter, Dr. Tanaka, and a squad of Earth's most elite soldiers. They had fought their way through the capital city not through overwhelming force, but through tactics so unpredictable that Thraxian defenders had been unable to formulate effective responses. The Thraxian hierarch stood at the chamber center, a towering figure whose crystalline exoskeleton reflected the light in prismatic patterns. Unlike the warrior caste, the hierarch's form was adorned with intricate growth patterns, living calculations etched into its very body. Surrounding it were the calculators, the ruling council whose neural networks collectively guided their civilization's expansion. Your probability engines have failed you, Vega stated without preamble, her voice echoing through the suddenly silent chamber. She activated a holographic projector showing real-time footage of the defeated Thraxian fleet. Your mathematical models cannot account for human determination. The hierarch's multifaceted eyes studied her with an alien intensity. You have achieved what our calculations deemed impossible, it acknowledged, its translated voice carrying no emotion. Our probability engines calculated a 1 in 17 trillion chance of any species penetrating the quantum reef. The odds of a successful assault on our homeworld were designated as functionally zero. Yet here we stand, Vega replied. A subtle vibration ran through the assembled Thraxians, their version of agitation, Carter had explained. They were experiencing severe cognitive dissonance, their worldview crumbling around them. You will execute us now, stated the hierarch with cold certainty. It is the logical conclusion to our defeat. The assembled Thraxian leaders straightened, preparing to face extinction with the same calculated precision with which they had inflicted it on others. Vega glanced at Dr. Tanaka, who gave a subtle nod. The moment had come to deploy humanity's most incomprehensible weapon. No, she said simply. The hierarch's crystalline structure flickered with confusion. The translator struggling to convey a response its algorithms hadn't anticipated. We could glass your world today, Vega continued, her voice carrying throughout the chamber. Many of my people demanded exactly that. Your attacks killed thousands, took thousands more for your experiments. The weapons you were developing would have eventually sterilized Earth and any other world with what you call excessive creative potential. She paused, letting the accusation settle. Instead, we offer terms. Return all captives from all species, respect our boundaries, and most importantly, learn from your miscalculation. Lieutenant Carter stepped forward, offering a data crystal containing the peace terms. Your species values precision. Ours values possibility. Together, we could solve problems neither of us could address alone. The hierarch's translator emitted a series of discordant tones as it processed this unexpected development. Clarify. You possess total tactical advantage, yet offer terms instead of extinction. We call it mercy, Vega explained, a concept your language lacks. Throughout the chamber, the assembled Thraxians experienced what their historians would later call the Great Recalculation, a fundamental shift in their understanding of reality. A species with the power to destroy them had chosen not to. This single act defied every probability matrix, every behavioral algorithm their civilization had built over millennia. As the human fleet prepared for departure, leaving behind monitoring stations and a treaty written in both languages, the hierarch approached Admiral Vega in the shuttle bay. It posed a final question, one that revealed how deeply humanity had shaken the foundations of Thraxian thought. Your victory defied every probability. How could your species commit such resources to a plan with such minimal chance of success? Vega considered the question carefully. Her answer would be recorded in both species archives, studied by generations to come. That's the difference between us. You needed to be certain of victory to attempt this journey. We only needed to be certain we couldn't live with ourselves if we didn't try. 3 generations later, the Quantum Reef became a joint research station where both species studied together. The precision of Thraxian mathematics enhanced by the boundless creativity of human intuition, solving problems neither could have addressed alone. The impossible journey that had begun with an act of aggression ended with a relationship that transformed both civilizations. And in the Academy on Earth, where new fleet officers trained, Admiral Vega's words were inscribed above the entrance. The impossible is merely that which hasn't been attempted with sufficient determination.